Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pearce. This is a US political news update and analysis where I had this just arranged set of nuggets I was going to talk to you about. But I'm going to fit it into a larger discussion about whether the US is embracing fascism, and I mean that in a technical sense, not in just some pejorative. Like literally this is authoritarianism and fascism, and we can place the US in this area in the descent from A to B. And we can look at the US and see that it's been far quicker at the moment than it has been in any other movement towards authoritarianism and fascism that we've seen previously. And in fact, we're going to have reference in that to Ruth Ben-Ghiat. I'm just reading her book Strongmen, about strongmen around the world, whether it be Mussolini, that's her expertise, Mussolini, Hitler, Bolsonaro, Berlusconi, Trump himself, Putin, Orban, Pinochet, all these strongmen throughout recent modern history. Where does Trump fit in with that, and what is going on with the United States? Her book is brilliant. I'd advise reading many other books on that. I've read Jason Stanley's How Fascism Works. I mean, her book was written in Trump 1.0 as Jason Stanley's was, looking at Trump at that stage as fascistic and certainly authoritarian. How Fascism Works by Jason Stanley is a really good, easy to read book. Fascism by Madeleine Albright is an excellent book, looking historically at these figures as well as placing Trump in that category as well. And I haven't read Hannah Arendt's book on totalitarianism, which is the kind of magnus opus, the kind of one I really should have read already by this stage in my life, but that's one on the wish list. And so on and so forth. There are lots of books you can go and read that would, I think, tell you pretty much the same thing. Let's just get a definition of fascism first. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about might not definitely fit into this, but it's like returning to this idea of abductive reasoning, the inference to the best explanation. So when I have a set of data or a piece of data, like what best explains that data? So our discussion is going to be around, is this better explained by this is the US on the journey towards authoritarianism, or is this just regular political shenanigans, overblown, but it's just Trumpian, Republican, conservative politics? Which of those two theses and explanations best explains the data that we are seeing? And you can see that both ways, right? Okay, so let's just define fascism first so we know what we're talking about. This is a basic internet definition here: an authoritarian and nationalistic right-wing system of government and social organization. Extremely, or in a derogatory sense, it would be extremely authoritarian, intolerant or oppressive ideas or behavior. So there you go. If we go to Encyclopedia Britannica, let's see what the opening definition is here. And we have fascism, political ideology and mass movement that dominated many parts of Central, Southern and Eastern Europe between 1919 and 45. And it also has adherents in Western Europe, the United States, South Africa, blah, 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 blah. So yes, here we have, although fascist parties and movements differed significantly from one another, they have many characteristics in common, including extreme militaristic nationalism. We can talk about that with regard to the National Guard being sent to different cities and whatnot. Contempt for electoral democracy and political and cultural liberalism, a belief in the natural social hierarchy and the rule of elites, and the desire to create a people's community in which individuals' interests would be subordinated to the good of the nation. So on and so forth. So that's more of a technical look at it, but in very sort of broad sense, it's an authoritarian and nationalist right-wing system of government and social organisation. And I think it very clearly would. I think the United States, is my thesis, would very clearly fit into that. Just finally, Merriam-Webster Dictionary: a populist, political philosophy, so again, populism being thrown in there, interesting, movement or regime such as that of the fascisti, that exalts nation and often race above the individual, that is associated with a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, and that is characterized by severe economic and social regimentation and by forcible suppression of opposition. And again, I would say all of that is involved in what Trump is doing at the moment. So we're going to go to Ruth Ben-Ghiat here. I think she's a professor, certainly a lecturer, and author of Strong Men. Here, the segue into this is talking about the opposition leader in Turkey, that Erdogan, the strongman leader there, I would say dictatorial leader, has imprisoned, and he's actually imprisoned his lawyer and his lawyer's lawyer. And she then goes on to express how quickly the United States has progressed or regressed down this anti-democratic road, and that it is far, far quicker than all the other examples in history that we know of.
So also, for example, numerous lawyers have been locked up in Turkey. And the Imamoglu's lawyer was locked up. And then Imamoglu's lawyer's lawyer. So I wanted to tell you that story because and this has happened other places. First the lawyer, then the lawyer
Russia,
of the lawyer.
I know.
Yes. The cycles, the widening circle. So we are not there yet. Now, I also want to say that what are we? Month 9?
9.
Are we end of month 9?
Yeah, just roughly. Yeah, just 9.
Okay. There is no equivalent about the speed at which this is happening among leaders, 21st century leaders who came to office via election.
Oh, wow.
What
Really?
is going on?
And this is a very important thing to say. This is about people who were democratically elected, but then have democratically backslid to a point where they have ultimate power, that they have there is an authoritarian regime in place. Now, with all of those famous authoritarians that we know of, and that's why she doesn't actually talk about communist leaders. So she doesn't talk about, say, Xi Jinping, because that is a person who is in an already authoritarian, strict, centralized governmental framework, but it's not someone that has taken power or has come to power through democratic means and then taken the nation in an authoritarian direction. So that's an important distinction, but there is no comparison in 20th and 21st century history.
On here, yes, it resembles
what was
more
the time
after
frame in Turkey?
Well, Erdogan's been there.
Right, but when did you start to see the signs of
like after 2014, they started, but it's really after the coup attempt against him in 2016.
Oh wow! So this is really fast in the United States.
And the same with Russia, even Russia under Putin. Certain things were done, but it took a long. Putin's been there as long as Mussolini. He's been there 25 years. Orban's been there as long as Hitler. Right? These people are been there a long time, and so today we look at them and we say, "Oh, okay, this is the U.S. is looking like Orban's with the elections, but Orban's been there since 2010, and Trump has been there 10 months."
So when you're looking at Trump at the moment as pretty much being in a similar place to where Orban is in Hungary, with the grip on the media, the grip on the judiciary, and the grip on the actually the internal security services, you can talk about ICE for the US. They are in the same place, but that's taken Orban 15 years. It's taken Trump 10 months. Absolutely incredible. So yeah, we can look at what fascism kind of is. There are some interesting places we can go to. I'm going to start by saying, look, let's look at Jason Stanley's 10 pillars of how fascism works, how you get to fascism, what is needed, what are the ingredients, what are the pillars on which fascism stands. He says the appeal to the mythic past. So this is essentially MAGA. Literally, MAGA is the number one. So make America great again. It was great at this point. We want to be back there. So a really important part of how fascist rules come about. As it says here, fascists often invoke a glorified imaginary version of history to justify their policies and policies of the nation. So rose-tinted glasses about a great mythic past. It didn't actually really exist. Oh, it was great then. Yeah, but don't you remember this happened? You had slavery and you had this and rape within marriage and this and that. And but it was great then. Then you've got propaganda. Fascist propaganda stirs hostility and manipulates emotions, displacing reasoned public debate with fear and division. I would say, you can see Fox News, for example, as propagandistic. Anti-intellectualism. Fascists promote anti-intellectualism to undermine critical thinking and challenge established norms. You've got RFK Jr. as the head of the HHS there. You've got the experts like Dr. Fauci have been ridiculed and badmouthed to the point where they are now no longer trusted. It's that trust in institutions that is eroded away by anti-intellectualism. The intellectualism in universities, the liberals in universities. You see this really often on the MAGA right. You see this in Christian nationalism, where the advice is not to send your children to universities because they'll be corrupted there. And, so on and so forth. So that is kind of anti-intellectualism, which undermines critical thinking and challenges established norms. So it's burn everything down. That's that populist right. This is what we're seeing an awful lot of. Unreality. This is so true. Fascists create unreality to manipulate perceptions and suppress dissent. So let's actually bring in an example of that right now from what Trump has said in just the last couple of days. So unreality. So this is Trump speaking on Afghanistan.
Mr. President, what goes into retaking Bagram? Does that require boots on the ground?
We'll see what happens with Bagram. We're talking to Afghanistan. It should have never been given up. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country. There was no reason to give it up.
He literally said it should never have been given up. There's no reason for it to have been given up.
Leaving Afghanistan, I was leaving. I was the one that got it down to 5,000 soldiers, but we were going to keep Bagram.
He signed the Doha Agreement, went over the head of the Afghanistan regime or rulership and went straight to the Taliban, offered Taliban to Camp David, and he signed the Doha Agreement that caused the US having to pull out of Afghanistan. It is just not true. And there's an awful lot of gaslighting that Trump does that is highly disingenuous, and he outright lies. This is unreality. So here Trump is talking about how he well, I'm not going to play it because I don't need to go through the whole minute here, but Trump claims that he was the one who capped the cost of insulin at $35 and accuses Biden of trying to take the credit. Biden did that. I know there were things that he wanted to do beforehand, Trump, but Biden was the one that did that. It's where the other thing, actually, I should show you this as well because I have this ready somewhere else. So here's another sense of the unreality. Trump tried to kill the infrastructure law. Now he's getting credit for its project. So he wanted to get rid of the infrastructure bill that Biden put in place, but then he's seeing the success it's having in local communities, and he started putting signs up with his name on it saying that he was responsible for the infrastructure bill when it was Biden that did it. And again, this is just the kind of lying, Seattle rail yard modernization, President Donald Trump rebuilding America's infrastructure. And that was the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of Joe Biden, right? And so just absolutely incredible, but this is the unreality that Trump exists in, and that's one of the pillars of fascism. So fascists create unreality to manipulate perceptions and suppress dissent. Hierarchy. Fascists strive to recreate a mythic and glorious past by excluding those they believe to be inferior. And again, that's like talking about immigrants, migrants, people from a migrant background who might be a certain generation, they're talking a foreign language, you shouldn't be able to blah, 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 have access to healthcare. JD Vance was talking about people shouldn't be allowed to have emergency healthcare. So say someone's just had their arm chopped off in an accident. It's like these people are speaking foreign languages and they're clogging up our system. And doctors are like, no, we treat everybody. It's actually a law passed by Ronald Reagan that, you know, we are obliged to treat people no matter whether they have insurance or not, or immigrants or not. So this idea that there's a hierarchy, that you shouldn't have to sit behind these people, you should have the rights over them because etc. etc. Victimhood. Fascism used victimhood to create a sense of urgency and fear among the populace. This is a grievance narrative. It's like, we are the oppressed ones, we are this. You know, you often get this with Christian nationalism, that Christianity is somehow oppressed in the United States. The secular liberal cartel of media are somehow oppressing, you know, etc. etc. Law and order. Fascists promote law and order solutions to suppress dissent and maintain control. So why are you not hearing so much about Palestine and the rights of Palestinians? Because the dissent has been crushed, and you're expected, you know, if you don't, if you come out and protest against certain things, then you won't be allowed to go to university. You won't get your visa. You'll get your visa refused, or you know, etc. etc. It's like clamping down, using law and order to clamp down on ICE, National Guard, and the amount of money that's been thrown into law and order to really get a grip of political dissent as much as anything in the United States. Sexual anxiety. Fascists exploit sexual anxiety to manipulate men's fears and gain power. That's something that has happened in the past as well and seems to be happening again. Favouring the heartland. So think about the heartland here as being the bucolic rural heartland. That's what this is what happened in Germany in the 1930s. Fascists promote the heartland to exclude those they perceive as outsiders. So there's this rural-urban divide where the urban, metropolitan, intellectual areas are also seen as social and sexual degenerates, right? And that we want to harken back to the good old days and the bucolic heartlands and the rolling hills of, you know, so on and so forth. And then dismantling public goods and unions. So fascists dismantle public goods and unions to consolidate power and control. These pillars are not abstract theories, they are historical patterns that have been repeatedly deployed to justify authoritarian control. Jason Stanley's analysis serves as both a crucial examination of the mechanisms of oppression and a call to action for readers to recognise and resist these damaging patterns. And then we can look at other, you know, here's a really good analysis by Canadian Snowman. It is a two-part series here. First part was establishing what fascism actually is from a definitional historical point of view, and then the second part here is looking at whether Trump and MAGA are qualifying as fascistic. And there's a checklist, and again another 10 here, so very similar: ultranationalism and blood and soil ideology, violent suppression of opposition, scapegoating of minorities and others, fusion of state and corporate power, control of information and attack on the press, rewriting of education and history, cult of personality and a strongman, rejection of democratic norms and institutions, glorification of violence and militarism, nostalgia for a mythical golden age. So quite similar but not entirely the same as Jason Stanley's 10, and you can see all of those, I would suggest, in what's going on in the United States. And this entry here, this Substack piece, is very, very good and looks at each of those 10 points as a checklist for fascism, and then puts it against what is going on in the United States. And this was only written on the 1st of October, so literally just yesterday this came out, and so therefore the examples are very, very clearly recent. Trump and MAGA, a characteristic by characteristic analysis, ultranationalism and blood and soil ideology, violent suppression of opposition, scapegoating of minorities, fusion of state and corporate power. You can see all of the examples here as this is padded out this is the meat is put on the bone here by the author. Okay, now let's go into the stuff I was going to tell you. So that's all the kind of preamble. I know it's quite long, but that's preamble to give you a sense of, right, is what we are going to see an example of fascism, or at least fascistic tendencies? Is it an example of a desire for authoritarianism? The first port of call is going to be Stephen Millard's quite extraordinary statements from yesterday. And I'm just going to give you some preface to that. So he previously spoke in a major way at the I'm sure it's going to be listed somewhere beneath here. He previously spoke at Charlie Kirk's memorial, where he supposedly, as according to some, I can't find it there. According to some, his speech was drawn from two of Joseph Goebbels' speeches. Now, you can go and read various analyses on this. Snopes actually has a pretty decent, fair analysis here, where they're saying investigating whether Stephen Miller's speech at Charlie Kirk Memorial included a Nazi subtext. And they talked through, what he said, how he said it, and here was speech talking about the storm whispering. The storm whispers to the warrior that you cannot withstand my strength, and the warrior whispers back, blah, 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 which is kind of possibly referencing The Storm is Coming, a speech by Joseph Goebbels from 1932. And, you can go and look at this, and you can go and look at the analysis and what the reference points are, and how Goebbels said things and how Miller said things, and so on and so forth. So it's an interesting read. But then look at this and think, is this actually pretty fascistic? I would argue that it deeply, deeply is. This is concerning sending the military to Memphis, and it's staggering.
To the Memphis Police Department, to the officers that I see sitting in front of me, we are about to provide you with a level of support you cannot even imagine. This isn't just a task force. This is a all-of-government unlimited support operation. ATF, DEA, FBI, ICE, Department of War, every resource we have. And they're not going to be sitting behind a desk at a keyboard. We are sending in real cops with guns and badges to go out with you on the street every single night making arrests. These are people who have taken down drug cartels, kingpins, the worst criminal offenders in the United States, standing with you shoulder to shoulder to shoulder. All we ask from you is to show up at roll call every single night.
Roll call. So you're going to have a roll call every night, and then it's just going to go around militaristically arresting ne'er-do-wells
with your brothers and sisters in the federal government, and to go out and get the criminals off the street. And if you do that, I pledge to you, we will liberate this city from the criminal element that has plagued it for generations. This is not just a strategy shift. This is an attitude shift.
Watch how he starts getting angry. The typical Stephen Miller, like as if he is at some kind of 1930s German rally.
We are not going to live in an environment anywhere where there is a street that belongs to a criminal, where there is a neighborhood that belongs to a gang, where there is any physical space anywhere that belongs to anyone other than the law-abiding citizens and families of Memphis. The idea that there is a square inch of block in this city where a citizen doesn't feel safe is unacceptable. This is Memphis. This is the United States of America, and all that bullshit is done. It's over. It's finished.
Wow. And this is a guy that is essentially running the White House. So I would argue that almost every policy position of the United States government is something to do with Stephen Miller. So he is the Grimer Wormtongue to Trump's King Theoden. And kind of, it reminds me of this. So this is a Dr. Seuss cartoon from 1942. And I have to remind you that America First is not a new invention. It's not a Trumpian invention. America First was a movement from the 1930s that was fascistic. It was aligned to, it was a Hitler appeasement movement. Charles Lindbergh and others they didn't want to send troops over to Europe to fight against fascism. They're like, that's Europe's problem. They need to sort it out, rather like with Ukraine. Really fascinating parallels between the America First, as you can imagine America First then and America First now, to the point where Dr. Seuss wrote this cartoon where America First beard is entangled with the beard of German fascism. With the caption, and on this platform, folks, those most perplexing people, the lads with the Siamese beard, unrelated by blood, they are joined in a manner that mystifies the mightiest minds in the land. America first and fascism then were joined by the beard, and I would argue now are joined by desires and ideology. Now, we have heard that, and this is coming from Trump himself, that he wants, and this goes back to the militaristic side of, those 10 pillars, the militaristic one. We already have National Guard in Chicago and possibly going to Portland, Washington and California. Like, that has happened. All Democratic political opposition states, Memphis as a city, and we had Trump saying that he wants the American troops to go in and use these cities as training grounds.
It's really a very important mission. And I told Pete, we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military. So
US cities, he wants, and he's asked his Department of War Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, he's talked to him about that. I want these cities to be used as training grounds for our military. That as Pete Hegseth has just mentioned, is going to be lethal, an absolutely lethal force. So you're having a lethal force getting their training in American cities. Again, is this something you would expect if you were listening to someone who wanted the country to be transparent and democratic and following due process, or does this look authoritarian to you? Which side of the fence is this data point? What side does it fit into best?
You're comfortable, or are you comfortable, is the question, with the U.S. military using American cities as, quote, training grounds?
For what? I don't know what's being implied by that. I can tell you what's in the president's mind and heart, because I talk to him all the time, daily, about this. He's very proud of the fact that we have brought crime down in Washington, D.C. You could go from your car to the studio today without fear of somebody jumping you and stealing your purse.
Training grounds suggest, hearing from the commander-in-chief speaking to the highest-ranking military leaders on the planet, that these troops are going to be in U.S. cities and use their time in U.S. cities to do military training.
Well, sure. I think that's been very beneficial for the National Guard.
So it's okay?
Have you seen the National Guard troops walking these streets? They're keeping the city safe, and the people of D.C. greatly appreciate it.
And that's an appropriate
from the
way
Democrat
for them
mayor
to
on
train
down.
In American cities,
it's a
on
win-win
American soil?
scenario, because the National Guardsmen are proud of that duty that they performed, and they brought crime down dramatically in D.C., and all of us are safe. Our staffs are safe. They're not walking in fear right now. I think we should do that in every major blue city run by Democrats who aren't serious about crime.
It just seems very antithetical to sort of the notion of
law
America.
and order?
Well, no, I'm not talking about law and order.
No, because that's what they're restoring.
No, I'm talking about
the
the U.S. military, how they're used.
If a city is out of control and it's beyond the scope of what the municipal police department can handle, which is what happened in D.C. by the testimony of the Democrat mayor, not Republicans, she needed help. She welcomed the help. And you know what? It brought the crime rate down, and we have peace in the city. This is the greatest nation in the history of the world. We have the most beautiful capital in the history of the world. It should be safe for visitors and families and school children who come here. The National Guard troops heroically have provided that. I think that's a great thing, and the president does as well, and I think the American people do as well.
Just real quick, you're talking about one side of the coin, I'm talking about another, which is using this deployment on American soil in order to train U.S. military. I just want to.
I don't understand why that is such an offensive notion. Of course, National Guardsmen train once a month unless they're actively deployed for a mission. That's a good thing. They're working together. I've talked with a lot of these guardsmen. They're having a great time. They're working together, serving together. They're proud of their country, proud of the nation's capital. Everybody should applaud that. I don't understand what the controversy is about that.
You're going to bring the House back?
We could introduce a Posse Comitatus Act, which is a federal law signed in 1878, was a response to the use of federal troops in domestic law enforcement during the Reconstruction era following the American Civil War. The act restricts the use of the military for domestic law enforcement, prohibiting the federal government from using its troops for civilian police duties unless specifically authorized by law, not by executive order. There are exceptions to this general prohibition, including the Insurrection Act, which is why there might be pushes for certain elements in society to be seen as insurrectionists or something, which allows the military to act as law enforcement in specific circumstances, such as suppressing civil disorder or enforcing court orders. You might you might think back to maybe the BLM protests, but that is not what's going on here. This is crime that you can solve by, I don't know, funding police better, having better prisons that do, as I said the other day, the recidivism rate in the US is one of the worst in the world. It's like 85% or something, I think, for violent crimes, whereas you go to Norway and it's 30%. So, what are Norway doing that the United States are not doing? Right, how about doing that rather than sending in the military, which is a real short term? Of course, the crime's going to go down in Washington. I mean, it's ridiculous. You think crime's going to stay bad or get worse if you've got loads of army people walking around the streets with guns? No, it's going to get better, and then they're going to leave, and then it'll get worse again. So you need to structurally change things. You need to do this through sensible law and order policy making. And rehabilitation. You send people to prison, partly to punish them, but largely, I would argue, it's more effective to rehabilitate them. Treat prisons like hospitals. You send someone to hospital, you might quarantine someone. So this is a quarantine approach to crime and punishment. This is what I believe philosophically. I've written stuff on this. Go and see people like Greg Caruso, who've written extensively on this. The quarantine approach is, you humanely quarantine someone if they're contagious, right? And that they're going to cause other people harm through giving them a disease, right? So you quarantine them, and then as humanely as possible, you try and make them better again, right? And then once they are better and they're not going to damage other people, they're not going to harm other people by being contagious still. Once they are better, then you release them back from the hospital environment or whatever, from the clinic environment back into society. Prisons should be like that. Okay, you can talk about retribution, but if you understand why people commit crimes, then you kind of take away from the retributive element of what you're doing, and it should be about deterrence. Then there are three elements to prisons, to kind of crime and punishment, the punishment aspect. One, retribution, punishment. Two, deterrence. We're doing this so you guys see you don't want to be in prison as well, so you don't want to be doing that. And also self-deterrence. So you don't want to be doing this, but you don't want to come back here. And the other one is rehabilitation, right? And that third one, rehabilitation, is the one that actually should be the most important, but it's often because people are very like, why do you go down for that horrible crime? And I understand that from a motive point of view. It's called a reactive attitude, right? From that point of view, yeah, fair enough, but it's not really good use of like money and time and effort and resources, right? What you want to be doing is making sure that you don't come back to prison, because if it's a crime where you are going to be released, then when you get released, we want to make sure that you ain't committing that crime again. So we need to skill you up. We need to give you these aspirations and skills so you can go out into society and don't feel you have to commit a crime to get by. You get by on your skills. And so that requires a long-term investment in your prison services, in your crime, law and order, and so on and so forth. What this is a sticking plaster that doesn't change anything in the long term. Like putting the National Guard on the streets doesn't suddenly give a bunch of criminals aspirations. It scares people not to commit crime. And then once the National Guard go, then you commit crime again. So what you do is you end up sending the National Guard there again and again and again, and eventually you are formally militarizing society. Turns out every time the National Guard aren't here, everyone's committing crimes again. Yeah, because you're not solving the problem in any deep and meaningful way. You're putting a sticking plaster on that, and when you pull it off, it's still bleeding, put it back on. Pull it off, pull it back on, pull it off. No, we need to cure this ailment. We need to think in long-term solutions here. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And this is a kind of fascistic way of understanding things, which is let's just get really harsh on people. Let's just send out the troops and keep the troops there as long as it's necessary. It's weak. Right. I want to play you this because this was weird. Again, from the other day in his speech to the commanders.
Biden let people come in from prisons, mental institutions, drug dealers, murderers. We had 11,488 murderers allowed into our country by this guy who had no clue.
That's a really interesting number. So 11,488 murderers who were allowed to come into this country. Now, no one can find out where that number's come from. He's reading from a teleprompter, right? Now, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you might think, it could mean something else. And actually, but if that number comes from nowhere, if there's no source for that number, then it looks like that number's made up. Why would you make up that number? Why would it be 11,488? Well, the numbers 14 and 88, super famous. If you just put 1488 into Google, right, let's do that now. Let's put it into Edge here. 1488 number meaning, right? The number 1488 is often associated with white supremacist ideologies. It is derived from the 14 words, which are slogans used by neo-Nazis, and 88 represents Heil Hitler, HH, the eighth letter of the alphabet, 8 and 8. So you see a lot of white supremacists have 88 or 14 as numbers tattooed on them. And 1488 together is just seen as both of those things. Together, these numbers signify support for white supremacy and are used in various forms of communication, including memes and merchandise. So then you go back and, is this ridiculous? I don't know. But if he's reading this off a Stephen Miller written prompt, then it wouldn't surprise me at all if Stephen Miller had gone, let's make up a number of murderers that Biden let into the country. Well, we know 1488 is the number we want because that's going to be communicating stuff to the people who know. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. 1488, well, that's not enough. 1,488, so let's put another 10,000 on that. Right. Biden's let in 11,488 murderers. I don't know. It seems pretty plausible to me. And it's worth noting a few other weird things as well. So again, if you know 88 is a number, HH, why are the flagpoles installed at the White House 88 foot high? Like, is that a normal flagpole height? That's weird. Trump, I need the kind of generals that Hitler had, he said way back when. I think that's fairly concerning. The Trump administration has awarded a contract for 2 Make America Healthy Again building banners at HHS headquarters, which are yet to be unveiled. Per contracting documents, the signs are to measure 11 feet by 88 feet and be made to last preferably the length of Trump's term. Why is everything 88 feet? Is that a thing? I don't know. Let me know if I'm missing something. Is 88 feet a thing? Or does this look like supreme? I wouldn't even call it trolling. This is really insidious and pretty horrible. But anyway, so let's talk about the militarization. Just a few examples here. I mean, there are so many videos I see on a daily basis that it's deeply, deeply worrying. Now, previously, ICE have been unable to break into people's houses because that's really problematic. They should have a warrant and so on and so forth. Here we have an example of ICE police busting down a front door in front of teenagers and kids without permission or a warrant.
See the warrant. You just gotta see how they're gonna come in. They don't want to show us the warrant. They don't want to show us the warrant.
Any other gram, please?
We have to see the warrant.
Ma'am, you're watching too much movies. We'll show you the warrant when we're done.
No.
We'll show you the warrant when we're done.
They're taking my husband. They don't want to show us the warrant. It's not a killer. He's nothing like that. We have 5 kids. Why?
Drop the phone! Turn around! Don't move!
And you hear the children crying and whatnot. I mean, this is 10 a penny. These videos are 10 a penny at the moment. Here's one of ICE and Border Patrol are patrolling the Chicago River in downtown Chicago. Residents are reporting that people are ecstatic and relieved to see help. Legacy media is lying to you. Keep it up, DHS, says Nick Sauter, who's like a real pro-MAGA guy. So obviously he's going to be ecstatic. But you've got boats and the militarization of these cities that I think is incredibly problematic and fascistic. Now, I'm going to show you another one. I've watched this a number of times this morning, and it genuinely distressed me. This is a distressing video. What does this say? I think this is... I don't quite know who this person is and why he's doing it, other than he's, I think, pretending to be police or ICE, or is police or ICE, or... This is a result of when you militarize society and you have balaclava-clad people who, without identification, going around with guns doing all sorts. And it is now, I think, a disease spreading throughout the nation. Is this what we would have expected a year ago in the United States? I don't think so. I would hope not. But this is really quite distressing.
Bro, come here. Come here. Yeah, you see? Get down.
Oh, you're about to get
no, you can't get on the ground. What the fuck? Get on the ground. All right, go ahead. Hey, sir, can you call the cops, please? Hey, call the police. Hey, I am the police. What are you doing? Get the fuck on the ground.
Yo, hey, stop. No, hey, Nicholas, stop. George, stop.
I will
stop. Stop. Hey, no. Stop. Do not shoot. Why are you putting on the ground? Why are you doing what?
Get on the ground.
Okay. Bro, what are you doing, dude?
Get on the fucking ground.
Yo, help. What, dude, what are you doing?
Hey.
Why are you pointing that gun at me? Dude, what are you doing? Hey, help.
And notice what the guy's wearing. It's not even remotely proper. Like, I don't know. But if you don't know whether this guy's genuine or not, there's your problem. If you're allowing people to go around the streets with fake badges and balaclavas on who have been deputized to, but you've not given them any training and so on and so forth. This is where it ends. Well, not this is where it ends. This is part of the journey towards a really, really dangerous future.
Mom! He's dragging him! Yo, what are you doing?
I mean, these guys don't look like illegal immigrants, right? These are white American brothers, by the looks of it, that are being set upon by someone with some kind of Amazon.com police badge on him.
What are you doing now? Dude, what the fuck is your problem? Mom! Ow! Mom! Stop! Yo!
Call the sheriff's office.
Come on.
Absolutely, anyway. But then, like, all the videos I've shown you already of the military, the National Guard going around all these cities, just incredible. It's that militarization of the nation. Now, the other thing that we're seeing, and I wonder if this is on any of the lists at all, but the kind of retribution of what it is political opponents, isn't it? So here we have rejection of glorification of violence and militarism, violent suppression of opposition, and I guess it doesn't have to be violent. Suppression of opposition. And, anything that doesn't allow for, democracy and whatnot to prevail. Again, law and order, using law, promoting law and order solutions to suppress dissent and maintain control. That's the one. That's the Jason Stanley one there. Now, that is what's going on. So this is an image from a CNN video on Trump's retribution campaign. So these are people that he's gone after. Joe Biden's tried to pardon some of these ahead of the game. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, James Comey, of course, now being investigated. Chris Wray, Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, I think. John Bolton, his house was raided recently. George Soros, they're going after him. Trump's been mentioning him a bunch. Adam Schiff, he's asked Pam Bondi to go after Adam Shifty Schiff, as he calls him. Fani Willis, John Brennan, Alvin Bragg, Jack Smith, Lieutenant General Jeffrey Cruz, Dr. Erica McEnteffer. So she was obviously got rid of the Bureau for Labor Statistics. Brian Driscoll, Jimmy Kimmel cancelled. Harvard University, Columbia University, Brown University, Duke University. Then you've got ABC, CBS. He's done through frivolous court cases, getting them under his control. The New York Times, although the New York Times have refused. Wall Street Journal is apparently taken to court. News Corp. Associated Press hasn't allowed them into the White House because they refused to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. NPR have been defunded. PBS have been defunded. Top law firms have had to do pro bono work or be victimized and whatnot. So he is starting to control the judiciary, as the law firms go and look into what he's done with the law firms. He's controlling the educational institutions by bullying them. He's controlling the media by frivolous law cases and threatening them and cancelling them. And he's controlling people, or he's using law and order to go after these people in a campaign of retribution. Mehdi Hassan, the journalist, says, to be clear, the next Democrat president candidate needs to also walk into office with an enemies list, and they need to announce it in advance. No more kumbaya, bipartisan, norms obsessed, we go high when they go low, defeatist, self-destructive BS. Fight fire with fire. This is what you're now going to have, is the other side are going to be saying, well, they've done that for the last 4 years, so if we get into power, and I'm not sure that they're going to be free and fair elections going forward, and that's kind of my point, but if the Democrats were to get in, then they would have every right to go absolutely nuts retributively on all the people who have done so in this regime. Now, what else have we got? Well, we have got the attack on the opposition by effectively illegally defunding them. So the White House is cutting funding to every state that did not vote for Donald Trump in 2024, an unprecedented combination of brazen pettiness and illegality. Russell Vought, who is at Project 2025. So what's really going on are people like Stephen Miller and Russ Vought, right? Russ Vought, these are Project 2025 authors from the Heritage Foundation who are running the country in alignment with the 900-page manifesto that they wrote prior to the election. And we warned of this. I warned of this many times, and it's happening. So I don't think that Trump is necessarily like this great authority. I think he's an authoritarian leader, but he just loves power and narcissistically loves himself. But I don't think he's a particularly clever guy. He doesn't have the knowledge of how to bring this about, particularly. What he does have is a bunch of people around him who are truly, I think, morally repugnant, who are the people who are bringing this about. Now, Russ Vought is one of these. He is acting CFPB director and the OMB director as well. So he's in the heart of the White House. Nearly $8 billion in green new scam funding to fuel the left's climate agenda is being cancelled. The projects are in the following states, and these cancelling projects that are uniquely in Democrat states there. So that seems rather problematic. Alex Cole says Trump cuts funding to 16 blue states that didn't vote for him. I just want to remind everyone that Biden never sought political retribution for states that didn't vote for him. In fact, they overwhelmingly benefited from his policies. Now, we're going to come to, in fact, this is essentially illegal. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to use the law in this way. We're going to now go to this statement, and then we're going to, with what Russell Vought has done or is going to do. This is a statement from Donald Trump saying, I have a meeting today with Russ Vought, he of Project 2025 fame. So remember, prior to the election, he said he didn't know anything about Project 2025. And he said that he was nothing to do with it. And some of it was good and some of it was bad, which is interesting because he said he knew nothing about it. And then he said, well, some's good, some's bad. So obviously he does know something about it. And now he's like, yeah, Project 2025 fame. This is all amazing. Anyway, I have a meeting today with Russ Vought, he of Project 2025 fame, to determine which of the many Democrat agencies, most of which are a political scam, he recommends to be cut, and whether or not those cuts will be temporary or permanent. I can't believe the radical left Democrats gave me this unprecedented opportunity. They're not stupid people, so maybe this is their way of wanting to quietly and quickly make America great again. So this is the government shuts down. He then gets to sack all the Democrat civil servants employed by the government, all the federal employees, that he decides unilaterally that, hey, don't like you, you're not loyal to me, so you're going to be sacked. Now, all of the aforementioned is problematic legally, but I don't think Trump cares. So if he's going to use the law and order and apply that to other people, but not to himself, then we have someone who is above the law and who is utilizing the law to cancel dissenting opinion, both within the government and outside of the government. Trump just broke multiple federal laws and went against Article 2 of the US Constitution with this post. 18 U.S.C. 595 bars federal officials from using official authority to interfere with or affect the nomination of election of candidates. bribery and extortion like statutes, 18 USC 201, bribery of public officials, or 872, extortion under colour of official rights, could be argued if funds were used as leverage to coerce political outcomes, which is what you saw from these decisions from Russ Vought. Civil rights violations. Retaliating against voters or cities for election choices should violate 18 USC 241, conspiracy against rights, or 242, deprivation of rights under colour of law. Constitutional violations violates appropriations clause, take care clause, the First Amendment protections, and even if prosecutors declined charges, it would clearly be grounds for impeachment for abuse of power. This is all wrong. Again, everything that you're hearing, does it fit into can you throw this into the bucket of transparent democratic ideals and anti-corruption, or does this go into self-serving corruption and objectives of authoritarianism across a nation? Now, we've already heard from Mike Johnson. This was a very revealing interaction between Madeline Dean, who I think, is she a representative? Yeah, I think she is, because he's the Speaker, isn't he, of the House of Representatives. This was caught on camera in the hallway. They had a bit of a big argument, and Michael Johnson actually admitted some things through kind of, we can infer.
The president is unhinged. He is unwell.
Look at Mike Johnson's face. He's nodding, and then he doesn't say no. He says, well, you've got people who are unwell as well. So let's play that again.
The president is unhinged. He is unwell.
Unhinged, unwell.
A lot of folks on your side are too.
A lot of folks on your side are too. You only say that if you agree that your person is those things. Unhinged and unwell. He's nodding his head and says a lot of people on your side are that too. In other words, the Speaker of the House of Representatives agrees that the President of the United States is both unhinged and unwell.
Oh my God, please. That performance in front of the generals, that
I didn't see it.
is so dangerous. You know I serve on Foreign Affairs and Appropriations.
Yep.
This is a collision of those two things. Our allies are looking elsewhere. Our enemies are laughing.
I just left
you
the
have a
Speaker's
president
side.
who is unwell.
Honestly, an incredible interaction there when you're reading his face. There's nothing he disagreed with at all there. Absolutely incredible. Right. Other things that are weird at the moment, and you can go and do this on Google. I did this earlier. It didn't work so well on the browser because I'm using Edge and trying to get Google on this browser. But if you go to actual Google Chrome and you put in the following search term. So if you put, does Trump have dementia? Right? Google does not return. There you go. Does Trump show signs of dementia? Something like, oops. Does Starmer show signs of dementia? So here you go. You've got an AI overview, and then you have the returns from the search, the internet search. But you've got an AI overview. There are no public reports or evidence. If I put Trump in there now, nothing. Are we starting to see an iron grip even on the information spaces like Google? Google is blocking AI searches for Trump and dementia, according to The Verge. This is actually being... there's an article in The Independent about this as well. What is going on here? Similar searches about Trump are limited in the same way. Various queries about dementia, Alzheimer's and senility display no AI overview and only produce a list of links inside AI mode. Google's behavior is inconsistent if you swap in different names. When asking, does Biden show signs of dementia, Google doesn't show an AI overview at all. But in AI mode, it will offer a summarized response. When I searched for it, the responses started with, it's not possible to definitively state. And you saw that with Starmer. So there is a different treatment of Trump than with anyone else. Why is Google doing that? Now, Google have now responded. So actually, this has been updated. It didn't say why AI overviews weren't triggered for those queries when asked by The Verge. Quote, as we said, AI overviews in AI mode won't show a response to every query. Thompson also pointed to a document that explains how AI overviews may not show for every query, and that AI mode may choose to show links instead of generating a response. Why Trump, though? But every time. There must be a reason, otherwise it wouldn't happen every time. It was it doesn't always show, but sometimes does. But if it's choosing Trump every time, doesn't show it for a whole list of different search requests, that looks to me like Google search queries are falling in line with what Trump might want. Now we're hearing that Elon Musk and David Sachs, two of the tech bros, South African tech authoritarians, we talk about tech fascism, and you can go and search that term up. Tech or techno-fascism is exactly, thank you, sweetheart, is exactly what, sorry, I just got a cup of tea there, is exactly what people like Peter Thiel and Curtis Yarvin and others are going for. Elon Musk and David Sachs too. That they are starting up Grokkopedia to go against Wikipedia. So they don't like the information being too liberal, so they want to I think what's the word, curate. They want to curate the information that is being fed to anyone that searches using Grok. He's already changed the Grok AI model something like 3 times because it wasn't being right-wing enough. So what would you expect if the US was tending towards fascism, or was indeed fascistic now? Does this fit in with fascism or open democratic ideals? Free, quick, independent fact-checking is the enemy of Elon Musk. They can't control it, and that terrifies them. When Grok kept responding in ways that he didn't like, he berated Grok and then changed the algorithm until eventually it now aligns with his right-wing agenda. This is not new. Disinformation agents like Musk and Sachs have long hated Wikipedia. It's imperfect, yes, but it is multilingual, free, and far more accurate than X, which Musk claims should be your main source of information. Even Grok admits X has more disinformation. Musk claims to champion free speech, yet he attacks one of the few platforms that helps people verify facts. This is not about absolute freedom, it is about control over what you see, what you believe, and what you can question. Musk wants you to get all your information from X, a platform flooded with propaganda, lies, and manipulation. Propaganda and lies. So if we go back to Jason Stanley's list here, we've got propaganda and unreality. Propaganda and lies. This is not innovation, it is information warfare. A population that cannot fact check is easier to control. The best way to fight back: donate to Wikipedia if you can, support independent fact checking, call out lies, and never let oligarch billionaires decide what truth looks like. Now, propaganda is being expressed on government websites now. It's quite ridiculous. In fact, I read an email that was sent to all veterans. The VA sent out an email that was blaming the radical Democrats for, not getting VA payments or whatever it was. And now you're seeing here on the HUD website, which is Housing and Urban Development website, now splashes an alert that the radical left in Congress shut down the government. HUD will use all available resources to help Americans in need. This is absolute political, I don't know, it's breaking all the norms. Breaking all the political norms. Shall we go back? Where was that? It was dismantling public goods and unions. This is the norms. Where was norms here? It was definitely in the other one. Just do Control F. Yeah, there we go. Anti-intellectualism, critical thinking, and challenge established norms. Then we also have here norms. Let's do that again. Yeah, rejection of democratic norms and institutions. That's, I think, what you're seeing here. And there's another one, there's another example here, which is on the, I think that might be another iteration of the HUD website. So Chris Cuomo then calling out a Republican on this.
I'm not used to seeing naked political propaganda on a government website. Are you worried about this violating the Hatch Act?
No, sir, we're not worried at all. And this is not about propaganda, Chris. This is just about letting the American people know what's going on. But we really need to be talking about how this government shutdown impacts the American people.
I want to do that, but this is part of the impact, right? I mean, when you're saying the radical left is shutting it down and they're doing it for $1.5 trillion for illegals, that's not true, Secretary Turner. That's why I'm bringing it up, because it's...
Okay, so now we're going to return to unreality. Before I let him finish, just to explain what's going on there. So the Republicans are claiming that the Democrats want to give medical care to illegal immigrants, and that's why they're refusing to come to an agreement over Medicare and Medicaid. And that's why there's no agreed upon budget, and that's why the government shut down. And that is a lie. It's an outright lie, and that is not what the Democrats are doing. And yet everyone on the Republican side is saying that. Mike Johnson has been saying that on television. He's being called out for that. Here you've got Scott Turner saying it, and it's just not true.
It's propaganda.
Well, you know what, though, Chris, you look at this, and I've heard all the cries and the outcry and people saying this is propaganda, that it's a violation of the Hatch Act. You know, to me, the Democrats and the far left are using this as a distraction to really deflect from what's really important here, and that's how it's been irresponsible actions on the Hill, and American people are being impacted greatly by this government shutdown. That's what we really need to be talking about.
What? So, no. Absolute nonsense. That almost sounds to me like I was thinking, is that a circular argument? He's just, but no, what's really going on here is that you want to scrap payment to, not to illegals, but to people on Medicare and Medicaid. And this is a good example. This is a good opportunity to do that. And if the government shuts down, you can also sack 100,000 civil servants. So I've already talked about this idea of unreality, the Trump just lying. I just gave you two examples of Trump lying blatantly. But then he was actually called out on the claim that illegal immigrants are receiving free healthcare, would receive free healthcare from the Democrats, and that's why it's being shut down. And because that's a lie, you would expect that Trump to be called out on that in public by good reporters. That very rarely happens at the moment. Here is one of these rare occasions when he is actually called out.
Mr. President, undocumented immigrants,
We actually do have time for that.
they're not eligible for the health care subsidies that Democrats are demanding. So can you clarify, what are you talking about when you say Democrats want to protect their health care?
So when an illegal person comes in, a person who came into our country illegally, therefore breaking the law. And look, we all have big hearts. I have a bigger heart than you do.
How do you know that? How the hell do you know? What an insult. I'm a nicer person than you. I've never met you before, but I am a nicer person than you. What a horrible thing to say. Donald Trump is just a horrible human. I'm sorry, he is. Anyway, I digress. I'm getting angry.
I have a bigger heart than you do. They're all breaking the law, and they're coming into our country. And we just, as a country, cannot afford to take care of millions of people who have broken the law coming in. We want them to come into our country, but we want them to come in legally. Now we have a strong border, very strong border.
Not answering the question whatsoever.
Christy and Tom Homan and the whole group, they've done an amazing job at the border. I mean, we had a border that was reckless. We had a border that was a disaster. They were coming
Not the
in
question.
by the millions. I
Not
say
the question.
25 million people. You're saying less. But
Not
I
the
say
question.
25 million people came in illegally.
Yeah, not the question.
And no system can take care of the health care.
Yeah, they're not arguing it should. Like, the point is that the Democrats haven't asked for that. So what are you talking about when you are saying that the Democrats are wanting to give free healthcare to immigrants? Like, stop repeating how many immigrants have come in under Biden and under you and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not the question. And Trump went straight into his same old word salad mode of incoherent nonsense. No answer, says Crystal Webb. Unreality. Here we have George Stephanopoulos calling out Mike Johnson on the same thing here.
The
Unreality.
Democrats' proposal is designed to prevent millions of Americans from losing their health insurance, losing Medicaid coverage, or paying higher health care premiums. Why are you against that?
That's an absurd statement, what you said there. Let's be clear about what happened last night, George. No, George, let me tell you what happened last night. Everybody can go and review the facts for themselves. 44 Senate Democrats voted to reject a clean, nonpartisan continuing funding resolution to keep the United States government open. The Democrats said instead that they wanted to give health care to illegal aliens instead of keeping critical services provided for the American citizens. That's what happened, plain and simple. Every Democrat in the House, except one, voted against the clean continuing resolution. It was nonpartisan in
nature. And then he went on to, say all that, and then George Stephanopoulos said, well, here are the facts.
Pain on the American people.
And he reads it.
Here are the facts. The proposal does not provide health care for illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants cannot buy health care under the Affordable Care Act. They cannot receive health care subsidies. No. Illegal immigrants are ineligible for Medicare, Medicaid, and the Children's Health Program. The Democratic bill does not make them eligible.
And that's a statement from the Democrats. And, it's just... we're living in unreality. This is gaslighting. This is absolute gaslighting. No, he's saying, no, that's not true. No, the Democrats are wanting this. And the Democrats saying, we're not asking for that. No, that's not what we've asked for. Yeah, that's what you've asked for. And then, of course, they go and tell the general public that, and that is unreality. So the general public is then really angry that the Democrats want to give all of their hard-earned taxpayers' dollars to illegal immigrants to get good health care. And they're like, no, we want to stop Medicaid and Medicare being stripped away from middle and low income Americans. That's what we want to do. Absolutely outrageous. Ted Cruz. Let's go to him because, why not?
Chuck Schumer and the Democrats force a shutdown, which they now have, that President Trump is going to use that as an opportunity not to tell people you're furloughed for a few days, but instead to send pink slips and to get rid of left-wing bureaucrats who are imposing left-wing priorities.
So that, again, this looks like breaking the law. And I take you back to the laws that were stated in one of the earlier threads here, which is, getting rid of people on account of, the colour of law, deprivation of rights under colour of law, retaliating against voters or cities for election choices, and not just voters, but employees. It's absolutely incredible that they're just admitting this in open daylight. Just incredible.
That are contrary to President Trump's priorities. I think that is fantastic, and what it's going to do is it's going to cause Democrats...
What it's going to do is it's going to give you a government full of people that would never be able to dissent against you, either won't be able to because if you dissent against the government, you know that you will lose your job. You cannot hold a political view that is antithetical to the government or you will lose your job. And then you have a government full of every single employee that is just a clockwork acolyte. That is authoritarianism. That's what 1984 looks like. That's what East Germany looked like. That's what the Soviet Union looks like. That's what the American dream is going to look like. The GOP MAGA dream. The fever dream. The authoritarian dream. This is how fascism works. Jason Stanley, how fascism works. This is it. You are seeing it. You might look at this individually and go, no, what are you talking about? You piece this together with everything else that's happening, and that's how it works.
Democrats in Congress to scream and weep and gnash their teeth. I cannot wait for the next Democrat lunch when they start screaming at each other, when they start seeing pink slips go out at the EPA, at the Department of Labor.
Ha ha ha, I can't wait to see their reaction when we get rid of 100,000 jobs. You bastard.
At the IRS, and suddenly the bureaucrats that they are entrusting to advance their job-killing agenda are themselves without a job. That's what's going to end this shutdown, as the Democrats are realizing that President Trump is making major advances for economic liberty as a result of the Democrats' temper tantrum.
Economic liberty is sacking anyone that disagrees with you. That's what freedom looks like in America. Then we have JD Vance. So, reporter, yesterday President Trump said, as a result of the shutdown, we will be laying off a lot of people that are going to be very affected. They are going to be Democrats. What? That's what Trump said.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, and thank you for being here. Yesterday, President Trump said, as a result of the shutdown, we'll be laying off a lot of people that are going to be very affected. And the Democrats, they are going to be Democrats. Has the administration asked agencies to target federal workers who they believe to be Democrats in these reductions of forces?
We're not targeting federal agencies based on politics. We're targeting the people's government so that as much as possible of the essential service.
We're not targeting it based on politics, but Ted Cruz has literally just told you that that's what they're going to do. Trump has literally told you that they are going to be got rid of because they're Democrats.
Of the essential services can continue to function. That is the question the president has asked the entire government, is fundamentally, okay, we're in a shutdown. That causes some problems. The troops aren't getting paid. There's nothing that we can do about that while the government is shut down. But there are essential services that we want to make sure as much as possible they still continue to function. That is the principle that's driving us forward during the shutdown. It's going to continue to be the principle that drives us forward. But let's be honest. If this thing drags on for another few days or, God forbid, another few weeks, we are going to have to lay people off. We're going to have to save money in some places so the essential services don't get turned off in other places. That is the reality of the government shutdown that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats.
And they're all going to be Democrats that lose their jobs. Now, he's talking about how, well, people are going to lose their jobs. Oh, it's terrible. This shutdown's terrible. We also hear, so I'm going to bring this forward actually, we also hear that the White House has just announced that the construction of Trump's $200 million Golden Ballroom will continue during the government shutdown while American soldiers go without pay. Oh, some people are going to lose their jobs, so we're going to have to work out who's going to lose those jobs. And if you're Democrat, it's going to be you. And oh, but by the way, we're still building a Golden Ballroom for Trumpy because, man, that man needs his ballroom. He needs a ballroom. That's way more important than paying all these civil servants that you know go to work every day to try and make life better for Americans. Civil service gets so damn played. I watched a fascinating interview on someone. I should try and find that for you. But it's on, like, honestly, these are unsung heroes. So, you know, people don't go into civil service to make millions of dollars. They go in because they've got a sense of civic duty, and they really work hard at what they do. They get they get a really bad rap. Right, anyway, in shutting down the government, then Trump comes out and does this. I've talked to you about this before, but just to remind you very quickly.
Disgusting video, and we're going to continue to make clear, bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented...
So that was what Trump did after he had already done that video of him and Chuck Schumer. And the video of him and Chuck Schumer where they have an AI voice talking about the Democrats being woke pieces of shit, right? That they're playing in the White House press room. Honestly, like, it's juvenile, it's deeply inappropriate. And you've got Stephen Miller, like, swearing and you know, talking in Nazi terminology, I would say. Then you've got the president making up AI videos and conspiracy theory videos full of swearing and showing them in the press room after already putting them out on social media. And then, you know, a conspiracy theory of medbeds that is absolute BS that shows he either doesn't know what he's talking about or he's got people that are posting things on his behalf that don't really know what they're talking about. Absolutely unbelievable. And it doesn't stop there. This is now Ted Cruz doing it. Just because, now we've been given permission to be just, you know, deeply inappropriate and childish. Let's just reduce government to playground patheticness. As Mehdi Hassan quite astutely observes, the guy who went to Cancun, so Ted Cruz famously went to Cancun when there was a massive national disaster in his state and people didn't have electricity and everything, and he went on holiday to Cancun and got into a lot of trouble for that. The guy who went to Cancun during his state's deadly natural disaster has thoughts about sombreros. This is what the government has fallen to, really. Now, if you're talking about who's to blame for the government shutdown, how about you listen to Donald Trump on the 12th of September?
How does President Trump deal with the government?
Well, we have to get Republican votes, that's all. If we do, we have the majority, so we have to get...
But don't you have to get 60, don't you?
No, we're going to do a probably continuing resolution, or we're going to do something.
How does President Trump deal with the government?
Well, we have to get Republican votes.
So his plan was, hey, we don't need 60 votes because we're going to get a continuing resolution. He explicitly said he did not need to negotiate with Democrats and did not need Democrats' votes to keep the government open because he was relying on this other thing. So he already told you that he wasn't interested in negotiating with the Democrats over that. This shutdown's on him. Now, let's go to Jessica Tarloff.
Trump is posting racist AI videos saying, I don't need to deal with them at all. Mike Johnson, J.D. Vance are lying about what Democrats are asking, saying we want to fund health care for illegals, which is impossible and doesn't happen. It is impossible. They're saying they want to cut $50 billion from rural hospitals. They took $137 billion out and then gave us back $50 billion and said that it's our problem. Came out of that meeting.
There you go. That's a 1984 handbook there. Literally George S. Orwellian. Oh, we've taken away chocolate rations. We've taken away 60% of your chocolate rations. And then a couple of weeks later, wait, we're giving you an extra 10% chocolate rations. Everyone's, yeah, what an amazing government. Thank you. Oh, you're brilliant. Yeah, we just upped your chocolate ration by 10%. I'm a little bit cleverer than these guys. And I'm just noticing that we're down 50. We're down. Well, actually, I'd have to work out the percentage there. But you took away 60%. You give them back 10%. And what about the rest? What about the other 50? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Absolutely shocking. And then, yeah, good old Caitlin Collins calling out Mike Johnson on the unreality here.
Rolling the greatest hits on our social media.
Yeah, I'm just saying that the point about giving people who are here illegally health care is not exactly what is in their proposal.
No, it is 100% what their
immigrants
proposal.
who have legal status,
No,
and you're just
Caitlin,
disagreeing
you're
on who's eligible. I
I'm
looked
not.
at it, actually, because I was curious about your argument yesterday.
You should study the CBO's analysis that they just put out a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I saw
and
that
you
about
should-
the 1.2 million people. You're basically arguing about who has legal status, people who are seeking refuge here or
I'm
seeking
not.
asylum.
No, I'm making sure that we are making sure in our provisions that we signed into law have ensured that health care benefits go only to eligible U.S. citizens.
But
Chuck
as
Schumer's
is federal
proposal.
law.
Federal law was not being enforced. That's the whole point. We had to fine-tune that so that we could strengthen the health care program. That's what we did.
So, there's no resolution to that argument. She's like, I've read it. You're lying. He's like, no, I'm not, because I'm using a different definition of what a legal migrant is. Okay. Again, what does this all look like? What pot do we put it in? Now, I had a massive rant about this. I think this is one of the most important things that has happened in the last few days in terms of giving you an indication of how corrupt the government is. This is terrible. It's terrible on so many levels. Trump is building a $5 billion golf resort and hotel complex in Qatar. Qatar have given him a jet. He went straight out to Qatar and Saudi Arabia and elsewhere in the region as his first port of call when he's made president. Meanwhile, his son was with the World Liberty Foundation doing crypto agreements with these guys. And then Steve Witkoff was out there with Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, just doing peace agreements, the Hamas-Israel peace deal. But actually, Steve Witkoff's son was out there soliciting business deals with the Qataris and Saudis and whatnot. Everyone's just grifting. Either Trump himself, Trump's son-in-law, or Trump's own son. They're grifting on the Middle East. And Steve Witkoff and his son, Steve Witkoff, has the Witkoff Group that is standing to make hundreds of millions out of the nations he's doing peace deals with. So, go figure. And then Donald Trump, he's not signed a peace security agreement with Ukraine. No, he signed a security agreement, bilateral Article 5 style peace agreement with Qatar. So in the event of any attack on Qatar, as you can see from the text here, the United States sends in its military. The Americans, the sons and daughters of Americans, are going to be sent to protect international geopolitical ideals of democracy? No, to protect Trump's golf course in Qatar, because he can't have Qatar getting attacked. So he's now slipped it under the radar, written in a Article 5 style security agreement with a guarantee to Qatar. Why? Because he's got a $5 billion resort being built there. That is absolute corruption of the highest level. Bloomberg reports that the Trump Organization agrees a deal to build a new commercial and housing development valued at over $1 billion in Saudi Arabia's second largest city. Why is that happening while he's president? Is he not divested? Like, how is this not a complete conflict of interest? Business is booming in the Middle East for Trump. Deal after deal after deal for Trump. Not for the United States, for Trump. Absolutely incredible. And this is where, like, there's this union. I mean, it's talked about, is it in this one? No, I think it might have been in here. So, cult personality, obviously, control of information, attack on the press, fusion of state and corporate power. The fusion of state and corporate power, in this case, personal power. This is what Vladimir Putin has done. Vladimir Putin is one of the richest men in the world. Trump's looking at that going, I can do that. Hold my beer, he's trying to say. And then when someone calls this out to the press secretary, they're called despicable.
President of the United States.
And second thing, how did the White House decide that it is appropriate for Jared Kushner to be working on matters that involve Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, 3 countries that combined have given him more than $2.5 billion for his investment firm?
I think it's, frankly, despicable that you're trying to suggest that it's inappropriate for Jared Kushner, who is widely...
And then and on she goes, just having to go in for daring to ask a question. No, that's what you do. That's the First Amendment, right? And that's what you do when you allow a press call to hold the government to account. My bet is he won't be allowed into the next press call meeting, and he'll be punished for that. Absolutely outrageous. Now, I've got a whole section here on the guy that shot at the Mormon church. I don't think that's actually relevant. That was just going to be part of my general news stuff. But some interesting stuff there. Then we got, the economy, jobs being lost, farming, so on and so forth. We've got Hegseth upending troops' access to a watchdog, whistleblower complaints. So this is making the military more authoritarian. Hegseth will review the mechanisms for filing complaints in the military and relax the rules for the treatment of officers with privates, including definition of hazing, toxic leadership, discrimination, sexual harassment and abuse. In other words, it's going to be easier to have toxic leadership, hazing, discrimination, sexual harassment and abuse. And that's what he's doing. Because, butch fighters. Again, is this what you would expect if you were seeing a descent into authoritarianism? I think it is. And now we've got everyone cancelling Netflix. This is the latest thing. Elon Musk is trying to cancel Netflix because he thinks it's too woke. And now you got everyone from Roger Stone to libs of TikTok and wokeness, all these people saying they're cancelling Netflix. And, you are essentially cancelling any form of, liberal media, really. And honestly, this is just another tick in the checklist of how do we get to authoritarianism. I'm pretty perturbed at all of this. Just remember to ask yourself over the coming days and weeks, whenever you see Trump say something, listen to what he says. Whenever you hear Stephen Miller say something, or JD Vance say something, or Elon Musk say something, ask yourself, does this benefit authoritarianism or democratic ideals and freedoms? Ask yourself that with everything now. Is this helping to move America towards authoritarianism and fascism? Or does it help to stave that off? Does it help to facilitate and nurture democracy? These are truly worrying times. Don't wait till it's too late to react. Now's your time to react. Now's the time for political activism.